Hi, I'm Dr. Louis Keizer with the Home Temple and the Wisdom Seminars. In 2008, we actually have two dates for Wesak or Wesak. April 20th, the Theosophical Wesak, and May 20th, the Buddhist Wesak, which celebrates the true sidereal and cosmic date. Both are powerful times for meditation. Let's look at what is so special about our moon, and the full moon in particular. Our moon is the mother of all life on Earth. It's not just an asteroid grabbed by Earth's gravity like the moons of Mars. Now, when the first astronauts brought back moon rocks, scientists were amazed to find out that they were made of the Earth's crust. Now, how could that happen? Well, after the Earth formed by collision and accretion, the dense minerals rich with iron and nickel sank to the center, where they still provide us with a protective magnetosphere. But the least dense ones formed a crust made of silicates and other minerals. Now, the Earth had cooled for a few 100 million years when suddenly it was struck by a Mars-sized planet called Orpheus, or various other names, one of the last planetoids that hadn't cleared out its own harmonic orbit, and it was destroyed in two massive collisions with Earth that knocked much of the crust out into orbit, and some eventually fell onto Earth, but much of it accreted and formed our moon. You can click the big whack link to watch a YouTube video that puts the event to song. Now, the moon orbited the Earth so fast that if you'd been able to stand on the molten crust of the Earth, you would have seen it moving through space. It was only about 14,000 miles away, so it would have appeared huge in the sky, about the size of your fist. And it exerted tremendous tidal forces, not only on the oceans, but upon the land, generating lava flows and earthquakes. As microscopic life forms developed on Earth, the lunar tides were encoded into their very DNA. And today all plants and animals respond to lunar cycles and the biorhythms of fertility and cellular activity. The moon at one time looked this large in the sky and had tremendous power over the formation of life on Earth, and it is the moon that keeps the axis tilted so that we have regular seasons each year. Plant and animal biorhythms are easy to discover. For example, horse breeders know that always on the full moon, mares will be fertile. Experiments with mice and rats and with tissues demonstrate that they all follow 28-day lunar cycles and they respond to full moons. At the time of the full moons are the time that you want to harvest plants if you want resins from them and things like that, because the tides of the plants are pretty. Now, the moon has quite a connection with the brain. Even though the influence of the tidal forces diminished over billions of years, as the moon slowly orbited farther and farther away from the Earth and the lunar period slowed down to 28 days, but very tiny cells and organisms are still attuned to those tidal forces. They're encoded. And it operates at cellular levels in large organisms like plants and animals and humans that depend upon microscopic organisms and cells. This is a chart of the pituitary hormones graphed against a lunar cycle. Now, they're no longer in sync with the lunar cycle, but they're 28-day cycle, reflecting a time when the moon and the lunar tides engraved themselves upon life. Here is a chart of ovarian hormones. They are released over 28 days. They peak on the 12th to 14th day, the time of the full moon. Here's a human menstrual cycle. The egg is released on the 14th day of the cycle. The cycles are no longer attuned to the moon cycles that we see with our eyes, but they are still based on the moon cycles. And this still influences brain and hormonal function. Here is a chart of people being bitten by wild animals. It's always on the full moons that the cases of these things reported nearly double. That is perhaps because there are predatorial instincts that are aroused in both animals and humans at that time. Some evidence for that I'll look at in just a minute. This is an engraving of full moon and new moon calendar that primitive people, prehistoric people, kept because that was their means of timekeeping. That's why the days are divided into groups of 28 months, 28 days in a month, and 14 days for a full moon, and 7 days in a week. And there are effects on human behavior. This is a chart showing when crime incidents change. And on the full moons, police forces very often beef up their forces because some of the most violent and vicious crimes occur at that time. Now, if we look at the Vedic wisdom about the moon, Chandra, the moon was a god and goddess, both male and female, and in Jyotish or Vedic astrology, he is the mind, which directs the Jivatma or the soul. In Manichaean and Gnostic religion, the souls of the dead lived in the sublunar, sidereal, or astral world in subtle bodies until they died out of those bodies and the souls ascended to the first of the 10 heavens. So the moon was a place where souls abode as they made their ascent. And as the moon waxed, these souls accumulated on the moon. And as it waned, the souls were dispersed from the moon, and they were drawn upward toward the divine sun. Now, astronomically, the new and full moons occur when the sun, earth, and moon are in straight alignment, like a spine. And as a new moon alignment, at that time, we won't be able to see the moon because its side is toward us. Only in 2 or 3 days will there be enough separation of moon and sun that we can see a sliver of the moon right after sunset. When it's orbiting exactly on the ecliptic, it will eclipse the sun. This can be visible for just a few minutes to only people that are in the direct path of that. The full moon alignment, however, happens and is visible to everyone on the night side of the Earth. And if the moon orbits exactly on the ecliptic, it will move into the Earth's shadow at the exact time of the full moon and turn blood red and then disappear and then return slowly over a few hours. And everyone on the night side of the Earth will see that. So the full moon alignment is so powerful for meditation consciousness because it produces an axis from the Earth through the moon and the sun in specific locations of the great body of the cosmos. And it becomes a kind of cosmic clock. These locations we mark with the signs and houses of the zodiac. And it is a time when we complete telepathic communication and can have almost a perfect telepathic communication between ourselves and those guides that help us and assist us. So the connection between moon and mind and soul is a very ancient thing. Here we show the moon in the sign of Scorpio. The moon can be in any sign, the full moon can be in any sign, depending upon how things are at any particular time, but that's where the moon would be with regard to a constellation. Please go to Part 2.